You know what's wild? Ever since Leon Edwards versus Della Maddalena got announced, I've been seeing a lot of people saying that JDM runs through Leon Edwards. And look, I'm willing to play devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that JDM can't beat Leon because I think he absolutely could. But to say that he just smokes him, I don't know, man. I feel like this fight is way more competitive than people are giving it credit for. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not out here questioning people for thinking JDM wins. I get it. Leon kind of did this to himself. He's a point fighter, and when you fight like that, you give off a certain image. But let's not act like that style hasn't worked for him. Dude can strike, he can wrestle, and we've seen him outpoint plenty of solid fighters in the UFC. But here's the issue. It's crystal clear that he struggles with pressure. We saw it with Usman. We saw it with Bilal. The guy is mentally weak, and when things go south and he just doesn't have the killer instinct, that's the biggest knock on Leon. He's so good at point fighting that he never feels urgency to go for the finish. And that's why I think so many people are like, oh, JDM smokes him. Because if Jack comes in with that relentless pace and forces Leon into a dogfight, we've seen how it plays out before. And let me tell you right now, JDM gives Leon Edwards problems in a few ways. And the biggest one has to be in the boxing. JDM's hands are clean. He's not just throwing wild punches, he's calculated. He mixes up the volume and power really well, especially to the body, and that's something that can wear on Leon as the fight goes on. If you look at how Leon fights, he likes to operate at range, picking shots with kicks and straight punches. But if JDM can close the distance and make it into a phone booth fight, Leon's not going to have the same space to do what he does best. We've seen guys like Nate Diaz, who isn't half the boxer that JDM is, land clean on Leon when he applies pressure. JDM is way more refined, way more dangerous in the pocket. Then there's the pressure. This is where JDM really makes things tough for Leon because, let's be real, Leon hates dealing with pressure. It's his biggest weakness. If you go back to the Usman fight, especially the second one, Usman had struck him against the fence for a long stretch because Leon just doesn't have that urgency to get off the cage. He'll shell up looking to defend, but he's not going to fight his way back into the center with aggression. Even in the second Bilal fight, Bilal was walking him down. That's just not Leon's game. JDM, on the other hand, loves marching forward, and he doesn't just pressure for the sake of it either. He knows how to cut off the cage, force guys into the bad spots, and just start chipping away. He doesn't rely on huge bursts of offense. He just keeps that steady, suffocating pace. And if Leon lets him build momentum, that's where things get dangerous. And that's the thing with Leon. He coasts a lot, he's insanely skilled, but he fights safe. He doesn't push the pace, doesn't take over the fight. He just kind of manages them. That's why people are saying that JDM smokes him. Because if Leon gets stuck in the same mode, just looking to output, because if Leon Edwards gets stuck in the same mode, just looking to outpoint JDM, while JDM is actively walking him down and landing the bigger shots, it's not going to look good for him. And if JDM smells blood, he's not the type of person to let you off the hook. He'll pour it on. And if Leon just shells up like he did in the past, that's where you start looking at some possible finishes. Now, to be fair, as much as people are saying that JDM just walks through Leon, it's not that simple. Leon might not be the most aggressive fighter, but technically, he's one of the cleanest strikers in the UFC. His biggest weapon against JDM is his kicks. Jack is primarily a boxer, and while he has some solid defense, he's definitely hittable, especially at kicking range. Leon is nasty with his kicks. He's got that fast, snappy lead leg, and he doesn't need to switch stance to be dangerous. We've seen him chip up guys with calf kicks. We've seen him chew up guys with his calf kicks, and if he starts landing those early, that's going to slow JDM down and make it harder for him to apply his usual pressure. And then there's that threat of the high kick, which we all know Leon can time beautifully. That kick he landed on Usman wasn't just some lucky shot, it was a setup. Leon is great on luring guys into his rhythm, making them think they're safe, then pulling the trigger at the perfect moment. And let's be real, JDM has been hit clean before. Look at his fight with Randy Brown. Randy Brown was landing on JDM early in that fight. It wasn't anything crazy, but he was catching him with shots on the body and the legs, and sometimes on top as well, sticking JDM with straight punches and even landing a nice counter that briefly made JDM hesitate. The thing with JDM is that he's hittable. His head movement is solid, but he's not exactly elusive. He relies more on his high guard defense and rolling with shots rather than completely avoiding them. Now, to JDM's credit, once he figured out Brown's rhythm, he closed the distance and turned that fight around really quick. But that does show that a disciplined striker who knows how to use his range, like Leon, could give him problems. If Randy Brown, who isn't nearly as sharp as Leon, was able to land early, it's fair to say that Leon could do the same, but at a higher level. The real question is whether Leon can maintain that range and not let JDM get inside, because once JDM starts dictating the fight, that's when things start going downhill for his opponents. Now, Leon isn't some one-punch knockout artist, but if he starts finding a home for that left high kick, or even just keep JDM guessing with the body kick, it's gonna make Jack hesitate to pressure as much as he usually does. Another thing is Leon's counterpunching. People underestimate how good he is at catching guys coming in. If JDM just blitzes forward recklessly, Leon will light him up with a straight shot down the middle. And that's the thing, Jack wants to be in boxing range. But to get there, he has to cross that no man's land where Leon is at his best. If Leon is disciplined, sticks behind the jab, and mixes in feints, he can make it frustrating for JDM to close the gap. Now, I don't think Leon is going to outright dominate him on the feet. In fact, far from it. But if he's smart, uses his kicks, and forces JDM to respect his range, he can make it a long, frustrating fight for him. It really comes down to whether Leon actually fights or just tries to coast, because if he's active and sharp, he can absolutely give JDM some serious problems. And when it comes to Leon Edwards and JDM get into a clinch battle, it's going to be very interesting because they both use it in different ways. Leon's clinch game is super underrated. He's really good at controlling posture, using frames, and sneaking in elbows and knees. Look at his third fight with Usman. He shut down a lot of the wrestling pressure by using smart underhooks and good positioning. He doesn't let guys control him for long. And if he doesn't like that position, he'll find a way out. JDM though is way more aggressive in the clinch. He's not really trying to hold and control, he's trying to land big shots, especially to the body. He has great hand fighting, keeping his balance well, and makes it tough for guys to just break away clean. If he can get in tight, start ripping to the body, that could be a real problem for Leon. But that's the thing, I'm not really banking on the striking or clinching for Leon to win this. I think the way he's going to win is with the grappling, brother. Leon Edwards' grappling is super underrated, and I feel like a lot of people just don't talk about it because he doesn't always rely on it. But if he does decide to mix it up against JDM, it could be a real problem for Jack. A lot of people see Leon as just a striker, but he's actually got some wild, solid wrestling and clinch work that he could use against some high-level guys. He's not the type of guy to shoot for a double leg non-stop, but he's sneaky with how he mixes it in. And against a guy like JDM, who's never really had to deal with a strong grappler, that could really change the fight. Now, don't get me wrong, we've seen him get out-wrestled before, most notably by Usman in their second fight, and then Bilal in the rematch, but are we just going to ignore the fact that Leon had his moments too? Let's not forget, Leon actually took the back of both Usman and Bilal at different points in those fights, and not just that, he controlled them for an entire round. That's not something you do unless you have some real grappling chops. And remember, that end of the 5th round against Bilal, Leon was throwing massive ground and pound, landing clean shots from the top position. That wasn't some lucky moment. He worked his way into that position. And here's the thing, Leon doesn't have to wrestle for 5 rounds. He doesn't even have to dominate JDM with grappling. He has to mix it in. If he threatens takedowns, controls the clinch, and makes JDM hesitate before committing to his strikes, it could completely throw Jack off his game. The real question is, will Leon actually do it? Because we've seen him sometimes just stick to his striking and coast the fight. And let's not act like JDM hasn't been out-grappled before, but it hasn't happened often. And most people don't want to bring it up because he's usually able to work his way out of bad positions. Now, to JDM's credit, he doesn't panic when he gets taken down. He stays composed, he looks forward to getting back on his feet, and his durability allows him to survive bad spots. But the question is, what happens if someone like Leon Edwards, who's a much better grappler than the people give him credit for, put him in those same positions? If JDM keeps going for guillotines and they don't work, Leon is going to make him pay for that. And if Leon gets on top, it's not about just control. He's going to land some shots. He's going to work his ground and pound. And he can make JDM hesitate on the feet moving forward. So yeah, JDM has been put in bad grappling positions before, but he hasn't fought someone like Leon who can seemingly mix striking and grappling together. If Leon plays it smart and doesn't just settle for striking battle, there's a real chance he can expose a hole in JDM's game that hasn't been fully tested yet. It's a close fight, but if I had to have an early pick, I'd lean towards Leon Edwards.